Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Dotdigital Stratus Live nonprofit mini series. This is the first in a four-part series that we'll have every Thursday for the next couple of weeks, starting off with smarter segmentation and higher yield for donor insights and campaigns. I'm really excited for this, and I'm excited to have you all join us. We've got Stratus Live with us, and we've got our account executive, Ryan St. Peter, with us, and I'm going to give them a sec to introduce themselves as we go through the agenda. Whoever would
Awesome.
like to go first, go for it.
Brett, do you want to go first today?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Brett Meyer. I'm Vice President of Professional Services for StratusLIVE. So I oversee all of the teams that do our implementations as well as support. I've been with StratusLIVE. I'm in my 16th year, so I understand our system very well. And I'm excited today to present to you how we can use a lot of the data that's within StratusLIVE to generate your marketing list.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, Brett.
Thank you.
Hey, Brett, great to be here. Susie with you as well today. Really thrilled to share more about my passion surrounding nonprofits and how we can create better segmentation. Of course, with our great partner, Stratus Live, I've been working with Stratus now on the Dotdigital side for just about 4 years. So we have a great partnership. Again, I'm Ryan. I come from a digital marketing and technology background. I'm an account executive on the Dotdigital team. And yeah, excited to chat a little bit more about how we can make our two systems work better together and also give you some ideas on some new segmentation, some new things to look forward to as you start to plan out 2026.
Awesome. And once again, thank you all for coming. We're going to get into Stratus Live talking about the power of your data. And then afterwards, Brian will talk about putting that data into action and we'll give you some next steps and some key takeaways to walk away with at the end of this webinar. And it should move us into next week's webinar to get us into the next step and a bit more deeper into the Stratus Live Digital sphere. Yeah, so you'll leave with some confidence to build powerful data. You'll have a clear understanding of how lists can trigger journeys, and you'll have some tactical real world ideas to make some re-engagement segments before the end of the quarter. And with that, we'll get started with Stratus Live.
So I want to go through just a little bit about the data that's within Stratus Live and why we feel it's really important to start within the CRM system to generate your initial list. Now, certainly when you get the data over to Dotdigital, there are things that you're going to be able to use on that side also. And I'm going to point out a couple of those, but we have such a rich environment where we can have different data elements available to us in order to perform our segmentation. So any data that you see, whether it's details about a constituent, whether it's opportunity management, let me get rid of our little flag there. I can have, sorry, that's a Power BI. I can have my participations and analytics data. And this is some underlying contact analytics that we have, lifetime giving and last transaction information. We can have wealth data from our wealth scoring systems that we have integrations with. I can have interest data. So these are the cause concepts that people may be interested in, engagement scores, recognitions. And if I go to related, I have a whole plethora of items that are part of that. And I'm not going to go, of course, into all of these, but there's just so much data that you can use to enrich your marketing lists that are already within the system. Now, one thing I want to point out, I'm going to go back to my details tab here. And I mentioned that some of this you could take over to Dotdigital once the data gets integrated. So any data field that is shared on this form or is within a contact record itself has the ability to be sent over to Dotdigital. So things like the roll-up fields over here with our total payments, our number of gifts last year, our engagement score, you're seeing some information down here on lapse status and life cycle status and monetary range and recency range. Those can all be shared over to the Dotdigital side. So we can do basic segmentation here, do some additional segmentation over there. We can also use these data fields to just perform segmentation. And we'll use one of these for one of our examples as we go through some of the marketing list functionality and we talk about each of those different areas. So the one thing I will mention also for those of you that are already clients of StratusLIVE, these four fields here are new. It is something that we're working on for the 2026 spring release of the software in order to get these fields onto the contact record and data displayed on there. So more to come on that later on. Now, I'm going to switch over to my Dotdigital model driven app just so I'm working in kind of the Dotdigital family, if you will, within here. So we want to create marketing lists, and I'm going to create two marketing lists on the fly just to give us kind of an idea of how can I use some of the data within StratusLIVE. What does that mean of anything that I have out there? So we're actually at the beginning of January. So this is a time of year where people are heavily focused on either lapsed donors or what most nonprofits would call live bund. So they gave the year before last, but didn't give last year, for example. So I want to concentrate my initial one here on that live bund of they gave in 2024, but didn't give in 2025. So this will give me something that we can market against. And then I'm going to talk about dynamic lists and how we can create those within the system also. So let's just go ahead and start a brand new marketing list. We'll call it Bunt 2024 to 2025. And you'll notice that this has a StratusLIVE email sandbox account. So this is my tie over to Dotdigital. And you'll also see there's an activate for email. I'm not going to turn that on yet. We're going to leave that switched off for right now. And I'm going to set this up for contacts. Click save. And that's just creating the initial pass for this. I don't have any members of this marketing list yet, so I need to go and create those members. To manage the membership within here, at the top of the screen, you'll see the manage members. We usually want to use this little drop down when we're using this. The main reason is if I just click on manage members, it's always going to default to this lookup view. Lookup view it really only allows me to search for single records, and I can add single records in there, but it's not really useful for using advanced find to do this. You'll also see there's using advanced find with a plus and with an X. So I can use removing advanced find to remove members from a list as well as add or just evaluate. We're first going to add this list here, and I did leave it as a static list because I needed the functionality of both additions and removals in order to perform this live bund properly. So I'm going to use my advanced find. This takes me to a default screen. Now, in order to save a little bit of time in this, I did cheat a little bit. All I did is pre-create a advanced find out here. So I want to select all of my 2024 donors. So if I click on that, it's going to preload my default, and I'm using my payments entity that is related to a contact record. And I'm just saying, just give me anybody that had a counting date between January 1st and December 31st of 2024. I click find, and then I can either add all or add only those selected records. So you'll see I have 2,501 people right now that are part of that list. So we'll just click add all. We'll give it here a minute just to add all of those individuals into our members list. If we go to our related items and we do look at the contacts that are part of that, you will see that list appear in there. Now, I want to point something out here. So you'll notice that it now says there's 2,499. That's two less than what I said was on the original query. The reason for that is because this does take into consideration those that have communication preferences that are set to do not include in marketing. So it's already dropped those off the list automatically for you. You don't have to remember to set that. Now, I may want to go through and remove deceased people and things along those lines. I'm going to do a little bit of a simpler format for that today. Now, that just gives me everybody who gave in 2024. I actually want people who gave in 24 but didn't give in 25. So what I need to do with my list now is come back up to here, and I'm going to use advanced find to remove people from this list. And again, I'll use a little bit of a cheat. I have my 2025 donors. I'll select those and click find. And you'll see that there's 995 that made that up. Now, you're going to say you only had 995 people that gave in 2025. No, this actually has looked at the people that were already members on the list, and it's telling me of those 2,900 or 499, how many am I going to remove of those? So it already understands that it's completely looking at the previous generated list and now removing the members that are part of that. So I click remove all. We give it a second here to focus in. And again, if I go to my contacts, I will now see that I have 1,544. So that is now a good live hunt list. That is people who gave in 24 but didn't give in 2025. So that's just a little trick that we found to use these static lists for doing kind of those inclusion and exclusion rules. Now, again, I may want to use some of my communication preferences. I may want to use my deceased list to remove people from this. I may not be done with it, but it was the first example that I wanted to show to walk you through just creation of that. Now, I do want to create another one because this is a static list. So that means it's what is what you get. The only way that I can change the data on that list is by rerunning queries. So I would have to re-add or resubtract people from those areas. So I want to talk a little bit about dynamic list. So I'm going to go back to the marketing list area, and let's create a brand new one. We'll call this one our lapsed donors. And it's still going to be based off of contacts. And in this case, we're going to switch it to a dynamic list for this. And we'll just click our save here at the top. You'll see that we do have managed members, but when we switch it to a dynamic list, you'll notice that I don't have that little drop down anymore because I don't have the availability to change how I'm doing my selections. When you do dynamic, it is always going to use advanced find in order to select the people that you want. So I'm going to use this. In this case, I'm actually going to build the advanced find. I'm going to add a row into this, and I do want my lapsed donor. Now, unfortunately, this is a demonstration system, so I do have two fields that are named the same thing, but I know I want this first one for this, and I want all of my lapsed donors that are lapsed. Okay. Now I can add more if I want to. I can add pre-lapse if I wanted to put those into this or whatever else I want to do. The other thing that I may want to do with this is add another row to it. And I mentioned deceased before. So I may want to include people where the deceased flag, and we'll go and search for our deceased, does not equal yes. So I'm actually using the reverse logic with this. So I want anybody who's deceased is either no, and this will also incorporate nulls into the system. So this will remove anybody who is deceased from this list. So that way we'll pick up on those. It's just another little trick when you're doing your data segmentation, how you might want to select those individuals out there. I click find. And in this case, I do have over 5,000 plus that are part of it. It's a fairly large and extensive list. I could include additional things, like I could include if I wanted only people that's given in the last 5 years but are lapsed or something along those lines. I can do any of those things. But I'll just click use the query and we'll just move it ahead. Now, the last piece that I need to do to get it ready for Dotdigital is I need to just activate it. So I'm going to set this that it's ready to be activated. I'm not going to keep it on manual sync. I'm going to leave this set to no. That way, on the next sync with Dotdigital, Dotdigital will pick it up. So that may be in 15 minutes. It could be in 4 hours, depending on what your synchronization settings are. What will happen then is this will create an address book within Dotdigital that will then be able to be used. So I've already pre-selected these people. If we say we're going to go over to Dotdigital, they're going to have the ability now to start some of the automations and things like that. So I'm going to pass this over to Ryan and allow him to start talking about what's this going to look like on the Dotdigital side.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Brett. And what I'm seeing is we've got a lot of opportunity in that lapsed donor list. So love to see that. Love to come up with the differential ideas that are out there. But let me go ahead and share my screen because I want to talk a little bit more today about when that data comes into Dotdigital, where it lives, and how we can further refine it and think about ways to break it down. So much like Brett, I've cheated a little bit and created a sample list. So you'll see along the left here my audience management tools, lists, context segments, etc. I'm going to go into my lists here, and this is where that sync that Brett just completed will live within Dotdigital. I'm going to go ahead and search for Stratus. And you can see here my list has populated through that sync. And it's an important way to think about this because we talk a lot about segmentation within the marketing platform, but there is so much additional rich information that lives within inside Stratus that is available for segmentation that we want you to also think about leveraging when you're creating segments that are going to trigger your constituent journeys and your constituent automations, which we'll be talking about more here next week. So you can see here, this pulled through all the members from that list created within StratusLIVE. And I want to think about now, what more could I be doing, or how else could I be slicing and dicing this data to maybe not see if someone maybe lapsed in their donation, but are they engaging in other ways? And that's some of the tools that we can use within the Dotdigital platform. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into my segments tool. What this is going to do is it's going to help me analyze the members of those lists here in order to further break them down. I'm going to go ahead and start with a blank template. And we're just going to name this lapsed. And I'm going to save this within my folder here today. And click continue. Now, you'll see a little bit different format than the setup that Brett has within StratusLIVE, but still very intuitive and able to drag and drop different areas into my segment builder here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take a look at who am I including and who am I excluding from this particular segment that I'm doing. I'm going to go to my lists here today. And I'm going to go ahead and drag it to include any contacts within that list. You'll see I have the option here to say they're present in any list. I'm going to go ahead here just a moment and select specific lists. And we're going to look for that Stratus Live here. We'll select our re-engagement list from earlier and click OK. This is going to do is it's going to pull any of those contacts in that are present in that re-engagement list that's automatically syncing over from StratusLIVE. From there, I can start to think about different behaviors of those individual contacts and of the contacts that live on this list. For example, just because someone hasn't donated doesn't mean that they aren't engaged with your messaging. It doesn't mean that they're not engaged with your website. So those are factors that I might want to consider, especially if I have a list of 5,000 or 10,000 constituents. I want to start with my highest priorities first. For example, they're present in that list. I could also go ahead and drag in my Opens tab here, and I can say that they have opened any campaign. I could look at specific campaigns that they were looking at. I could slice and dice it in a couple of different ways in order to get the data that I'm looking for. In addition to that, for those that have our web and site data enabled on the site, I might want to say, okay, they've opened any email that they have, but they have not visited my website in the last X amount of days. So for that, I can drill in further, and I could drill into my web insights here and select the specific website equal to mine. And that's going to allow me to further tailor down that data. And the reason why segmentation like this becomes so powerful is segments are, of course, as many of what kick off our customer journeys. So I'm going to go ahead here and just bring this back to a really basic segment. And we're going to say that they are just present within that StratusLIVE re-engagement list. And we'll go ahead and generate here. It'll just take a moment for the system to generate that list, but it's going to give me some good insights into the segment analytics, what their open rate is, what their click rate is as a whole. So I can use that information to better make decisions about how I want to market to them and maybe what I want my journey to look like. So it'll just take a moment here to refresh. You can see I've got 501, a little different than Brett's as these are demonstration environments. Just want to call that out here. But that will pull my segment analytics on what I'm looking at in terms of open rates, click rates, etc. So now that we've generated our segment, as I was mentioning, you can view the analytics and dive in a little bit deeper to help you make a bit better decision about what kind of marketing journey you want to send your constituents on. So if I go in and view my analytics here, you can see I can view the different email analytics, how many clicks this particular group has, what their click to open ratio was, how many emails they've been sent, what their most engaged hour was, and start to get a better understanding of who this customer is before I start to send them on that journey. Let's go ahead and move into our automation suite now that we've went ahead and built out our segment based on that StratusLIVE data. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my programs tool, and we're going to select new program. And for us today, I'm going to go ahead and use a blank template, and I'm going to name this Stratus Live Lapsed. And I'll go ahead and save that in my folder. And this will bring me into my canvas to really start building out what that program or that constituent journey looks like. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and go into building it and what messages and when and the different rules, but I wanted to focus on this today because it really leads us into our next path, which is how we start to map out and build these programs. So I do want to dive in a little bit more into our start condition. So I'll go ahead and drill into that node. I'll start my enrollment scheduling. We'll go ahead and do this daily, enroll at 6 p.m. Next, I have my enrollment rule. And for this one, I want to go ahead and leverage that segment that I just created. And I'm going to go ahead and click segment. We'll copy existing. And I'm going to go ahead and search for my lapsed here. I can go ahead and select that. You'll see it'll pull that up that they're present in that StratusLIVE re-engagement list. We'll go ahead and click apply and then apply again. And then last is my enrollment limit. So this helps me control a little bit more of how many times an individual constituent can go down this particular journey. Have they been a lapsed donor before? All different things I want to think about when I leverage my enrollment limits. But we'll go ahead and click apply here. And this brings us back to the canvas where we can really start to break out that email journey, which we'll talk a little bit more in our series here next week. Susie, I know we had a couple of takeaways on the slides here, just things that we wanted everyone to remember. So just a quick terminology check for us here today. Brett, I'll let you take the first one here, and RFML. I know that's something new StratusLIVE has coming out as well, and then I'll talk a little bit about triggered automation.
Sure. So we talked about that when we did the lapsed donor using the dynamic marketing list. It is smart. And I didn't necessarily mention all of this as we were going through it, but it automatically updates. So my rules stay into effect. So if somebody becomes deceased or somebody moves out of lapse, they give a donation. that list will automatically update. So it's going to keep it defined. That will also communicate over to Dotdigital and let that know. And then, as Ryan said, the RFML scores is some recently added items that we have out there that will allow you to take life cycle, lapse status, recency, and monetary values and use those in the queries that you want to build out. And then back over to you, Ryan, for the triggering.
Awesome. So when we're talking about triggered automation, really what we're focusing in on is leveraging those programs and starting to leverage that tool within the automation suite. So taking those segments and putting them into action and starting to build out our journeys. So it's really thinking about how we better organize, how we better leverage our data within both Stratus Live and Dotdigital to make those better decisions that trigger the automation and the flow. And while right now we're focusing on re-engagement, there's so many more out there that you could be thinking about that we're seeing in 2026 nonprofit trends, from being hyper local to specific interests to lots of different areas. All of that data living within the two platforms. And it's our goal really here to bring that all together. And at the end of the day, help you raise donations and help you raise awareness for the causes that you're presenting, because the work that you do is very meaningful. And I know we at Dot Digital appreciate it, and I'm sure Brett at Stratus Live echoes as well.
Amazing. And we wanted to give you guys like two ideas to theoretically launch this week before next week when we get into actual some more campaigns and welcome journeys and automations and triggers.
You do want to set a goal to just try creating one of those lists. Try creating either a lapsed donor, and lapsed donor you could do in a very similar fashion to what I did for your Libun donors, or try the Libun example. We will have a recording out here with this that you can use for that. We always want also is refining your preference centers that are out there, making sure things are updated that you do want to use within your segments, email addresses, phone numbers, your birthdays, it might be out there, any of the communication preferences, the do not contact lists. Make sure that you're keeping your data as clean as possible because that's going to make your list all the better.
I like that you mentioned do not contact. Some it's important to have those people that don't want you to reach out to them clean and hygienic in your CRM, in your lists. It just makes you a better sender and helps your reputation. Amazing. And with that, we'll end it here. If you have any questions, send them in the chat. We will be monitoring them. But yeah, any final words, Ryan and Brett, before I'm gonna stop sharing my screen before we end this for next week?
I just want to thank everybody for attending today. We're excited. We're kicking off 2026 also, and we enjoy supporting our nonprofit partners in their journeys across here and want to make their experiences as best we can.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Brett. Really appreciate everyone taking the time, and happy 2026. We're off to the races.
Amazing. And hopefully we'll see you all next week for our welcome journeys and automations. But for now, this is just a reminder to fill out the follow-up survey after this to let us know what you liked and what you want to see in future webinars. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Stratus Live. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye all.
Bye.